less than a week away from Skeleton Crew, which is kind of crazy to say. It seems like it's been an eternity since living through the Acolyte, but then all at the same time, like, I don't know. It seems like we just had a Star Wars show. So it's upon us, which means it's officially our prediction time. So Kevin, welcome back. I'm excited for this episode.
Thanks. Yeah, I am too. I always love the prediction episodes are always fun. You get to anticipate, but also just throw out some ridiculous things that we're usually wrong about. But hey, that's the nature of it. Thanks to JT Lovecraft for filling in. I know that was short notice, so appreciate him jumping on. I enjoyed listening to you guys talk all things Palpatine. That was a lot of fun.
He's such a cool guy. Lots of good conversation. He knows his stuff too.
Yeah.
Like he's
big
like into the comics and all
That's
that.
Cool.
So he knows his stuff. It was a lot of fun. Okay, so here's the deal for our predictions. First of all, format, and then I'm going to commend us for some of our predictions. So,
oh wow,
one, format. So I've got my paper here. I know you do too. We try on these to stay in kind of guardrails because we have the propensity to on prediction episodes to get out there. I still want to leave a little room for that, but for our plans are 3 predictions. So one, each of us will share a likely prediction. They may overlap. We haven't really talked too much about this.
No, we haven't.
Something that we want to see. And then past that, like just outlandish, fan fiction. It's not going to happen, but like, man, would it be crazy if it did? So that's like the pipe dream, crazy prediction. We'll save that for last, though. Now, I will say I did a little bit of a look back on some of our predictions. They weren't all that far off. So with the Acolyte, we were actually right quite a bit. So, but also they telegraphed a lot of stuff.
They did.
So, I don't want to commend us too much for that one. With Ahsoka, we were also like some of those episodes, like the episode 4 or 5, and then the finale, we were pretty close on those as well. Now, some of it was a little telegraphed, but not as much.
Yeah.
And then the Bad Batch, we just whiffed like across the board consistently. They just kept like surprising us on
which
things.
was nice.
So,
I appreciated that.
Yeah. So is that a Purgil on your shirt?
Oh, no. This is this is an Outer Wilds shirt. It's a little video game that I don't probably haven't heard of it. But
I didn't know if it was a space whale right there.
It does kind of look at it a little bit. Yeah.
Regardless, our predictions have not always been completely terrible unless you go and watch our Bad Batch predictions. Then, yes, they were terrible. So
skip those.
Again, less than a week away. Let's start with the low-hanging fruit, things that we think they're pretty safe bets as far as predictions goes. Now, they've been pretty quiet, hush-hush on this show, which I'm excited about.
They have,
So, what's your most likely prediction?
If we're going really, really pretty safe bet, it's Jod's not a Jedi. Not a Jedi.
Okay.
I don't see it. Bet? I don't think he is. I think he's going to be a really interesting character, though. I think he's going to be. It's going to be kind of a dynamic with him and the kids, where he is willing to work with them until it's at the expense of whatever his goal is, and then I think you'll start to see maybe a shadier side of him. I think he's probably a good guy with a goal, and a goal he's not going to compromise. That's kind of how I'm thinking about him right now.
So you think he's a good guy with a goal?
I do. Yeah, I think it's interesting because he tells these kids that he'll get them home, but it'll be like a partnership, right? Like, it sounds like he needs something from them.
Right.
It seems like he could just take their ship and roll out if he wanted to, but he doesn't. I doubt he needs the kids. I think he needs the ship for some reason. I don't know if there's something stored in the ship or if there's something important on the ship.
And the droid might be helpful for him too.
That's true. So I don't think he's entirely a bad guy, but I think they will be last on the list in terms of when it comes to his goal or protecting the kids.
Okay.
That's what I think. But I definitely don't think he's just going to be like a straightforward Jedi good guy. I think that's an easy prediction.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. No, I didn't think he was like I don't know his intentions are as good as maybe you think they are. Like you're like, oh, he's well
I'm an
intentioned,
optimist.
but yeah, I think he is like it's a mutually beneficial thing for him to be getting these kids wherever, and then there's going to be like that classic, oh, things aren't as they seem, and oh, he's a terrible person. How could he do this? Now, I think he probably comes around, maybe, right? Like
I was going to ask you if he becomes the villain and stays the villain, or if he has that moment of redemption.
I think along the lines of Mando season 1, episode 3, the Sin, I think is what it's called, the episode where he takes Grogu back to whatever planet they're on. That's throughout the whole thing, and then he goes back and gets Grogu. That's a really quick turnaround. I don't know that it'll be that quick of a turnaround.
Navarra.
Maybe it will.
Navarra? Is that what it was?
Navarra, or something like that. Navarra, and it turns nice under Apollo Creed.
Okay.
So I think, I don't know that he has the greatest intentions, but I think he probably gets there just as far as safe predictions go. But yeah, that teaser where it's like, you're a Jedi, right? And he's like, yeah.
Do you think he was a Jedi at some point?
No,
I don't either.
What do we know when this is based, like timeline wise? Is it like during this Mando deal?
Yeah,
like
it's supposed to be
3-ish
along the same time frame as season 3 Ahsoka.
So we're looking at around
all of it together.
What, like 10 years, between 5 and 10 years after Return of the Jedi. So you would be looking at 30, at least 30 years since the fall of the Order.
I mean, I figure he could be around Balin's age, right?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think. Like 30 years past the fall of the Order, so he would have been like a Padawan, probably.
Yeah. I mean, Jude Law's not a youngster anymore, right? I mean,
he's not. That's true.
I mean, he's not an old guy, but I would put him in the same category as
Balin,
like a Balin Skull, right?
Yeah. Oh,
so
like
who knows?
That Ahsoka age too, yeah, like that same same time frame.
I think it's so interesting that he's just out hanging out in wild space, which makes me wonder if he's just a random guy who discovered he can use the Force.
Yeah.
It'll be the wild space thing. We'll talk about it in a minute. That's very intriguing to me. I'm excited about it.
Do you kind of also catch like a little bit of Han Solo in him, like because we know how Han Solo's story ends. He's fully into this, and he is the good guy. But in A New Hope, he is. I mean, he's mutually beneficially in this relationship with Obi-Wan and Luke and the princess, and he leaves and then he comes back, right? So it would be a Star Warsy thing. Like you've seen that same theme over and over throughout all of the Star Wars saga that we have. So I think he probably finds himself in that kind of rough bunch group that not evil, not great.
He's very much the roguish, right, type character who wants to look like they have it all together, but probably doesn't, right? Kind of like Han, who's really kind of a big mess. So
that character is always a lot of fun in Star Wars as well. It does it so well.
I do think it's going to be a fun dynamic between him and the kids. I'm really looking forward to this show. We're going to talk about some fun stuff today, but really just because it looks fun. I mean, it just looks like it's going to be a lot of funny stuff, a lot of action. So I think there's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, I do think it'll have its dark tones here and there as well.
Yeah,
I think
emotional
a lot
beats,
of this
for sure
is a bluff. I still think it's going to be a lot of fun, but I think like that trailer kind of puts you in the fun zone, and I think it may end up
there's got to be something deeper to it.
Yeah. So there's 8 episodes. I wouldn't be surprised at all if like the first 4 in, around mid-season, it takes like a darker turn. Would not surprise me in the least. Because Stranger Things is like a pretty dark show, and I feel like it was billed as kind of like, if you watch the trailers and stuff, some scary stuff in it as well, because it's very within that realm. But it kind of had those 80s fun vibes as well, and it's a super dark show. So I wouldn't be surprised in the least if this takes that turn too. But yeah, I'll be super interested to see who what's his name, Jod Nawood or something like that.
Jod Nawood. Jod Nanawood. Yeah.
We're going to have a time saying that for the next 2 months.
I wonder if like you rearrange it and it spells something out like a Voldemort.
Like Tom Riddle. Oh, wow.
Because that's just the most random nonsense name.
I can't say that. Like, I feel like I'm like mispronouncing something.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you can't get it out. Jod Nanawood.
Marbles in my mouth. So, yeah, I think that's a safe prediction. Your prediction of
I think so.
Jod. Yeah. So my likely one, maybe this is kind of out there. I don't know. But my likely one is I'm pretty sure we're going to get a Thrawn tie-in in this. I just don't. Because if we're in this timeline, they're in this galaxy. Now, obviously, they get lost, and they've got the pirate hunt, and they'll have their own adventure. I'm assuming this is going to be a very big, like, story building type thing for these kids in this, in this story, as it should be. But if they eventually get back home, well, my goodness, Thrawn in this timeline has just shown back up.
Yeah.
With his ship and everything else. Yeah. So, how strange would it be if they come back to the galaxy during that time and like everything's just normal at the same time that the last Grand Admiral has shown back up?
We've seen some in some of the shots. We've seen some X-wings.
Yep.
Floating around, and so we can assume the New Republic jumps, which is interesting because they probably don't have a big presence out in wild space normally. So if they're out there, they're out there for a reason.
You know who does have a presence out in the wild space though?
Who?
The guy that we all like, Carson Teva. He's out everywhere.
Yeah, he is everywhere. He's all over the place. But he's busy, Mando. Right? Like he's also busy during this time because he's with Hera along. He's chasing Thrawn down, and I mean, there's some gaps there, so he could still show up. But
he's always showing up when something's happening.
Oh, he does all the time. Yeah, he's totally the front man for the Republic. Like he finds out everything. Yeah,
yeah.
People have it seems like spotted Hondo's ship right in some of the trailers too. Which there's an easy connection, right? The pirate with a soft spot. If anybody's going to contact the New Republic to come help these kids out, like it's going to be him, So that would be an easy connection back to the New Republic. Is him? If they come across him, he's like, "Hey, I know some people who could help you out." Especially if they come across something important, right? If these kids stumble upon something, So it'll be interesting. I don't know.
Well, what if? I'm going to save this. I'm going to save the talk on that. But right. I will say, Hondo would not say whatever you just said he would say in the way that you said it. It would be like so elaborate and talking through both sides of his mouth.
Yep. And there would be something in it for him, for sure.
But I do think, I think these pirates that they're showing, I think they're going to be the bad guys for a little bit. But I don't know if by episode 7 or so that they necessarily are the focal bad guy. Maybe they are, but I don't know that that's the case. Maybe so, but I wouldn't be surprised if by towards the end they're getting back to the galaxy and it is kind of like turmoil, and they're having to get back home through whatever issues Thrawn is causing. I could see that being a big roadblock, and then you tie it into this story that they've already. I'm pretty sure there's been some reports that are saying that like this show ties in with the whole Mandalorian story and all that. I'm thinking Ahsoka's kind of out on her own at this point, but the whole Mandalorian story that this group is tied in on it, and so this show really could be like the Trojan horse of walking us into the Mando movie in 16 months. Whatever other story they try to tell out of this Thrawn deal, because you got to think, what have we got going on in this story over the next however so many years? This is it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and it kind of came out, announced and all that stuff around the same time as all the Mando news, all the Ahsoka news. It just kind of fit right in schedule wise with all that stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if it ends up connecting back.
When Ahsoka starts filming this next year for season 2, in the spring is what they're saying. So would they even have it out before the Mandalorian movie?
Yeah.
I don't know that they would. They could, I suppose.
Right.
But then you would have one other project before that, and we don't necessarily think that those are going to tie in together. So I think this may be like hey, here's where this story is going by the end of it, because we've got to have some kind of setup, I would think. Mando season 3 didn't leave a very clean setup. So I don't know. That's what I think. I think we're going to push on into this Thrawn's backstory with this group, or at least get us to the next leg of it.
Yeah. And going back to something else you said, I kind of agree. I don't think the pirates are going to be the ultimate antagonist by the end of the show. I don't know who it's going to be, but I think something bigger is going to come along. One of the things they've been diving a lot more into than a lot of the past projects is like the big syndicates, and so maybe they get involved out there where there's no rules and regulations, right? I mean, we've had the Pikes in several shows now. We've obviously seen a lot of the Hutts. I'm assuming Crimson Dawn's not done at this point. I don't know. I'm not sure if they completely dissolved or not.
I haven't caught up on the comics fully with the Vader comics, but Vader would like them to be gone.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So
once I get caught up, I'll let you know then.
Yeah, but it would be cool if they, find themselves getting deeper and deeper in with some of these bad groups out there. Escalates beyond just the pirates. So
it really gets you into a big picture thing too, that they can take stories like a lot of different ways, which I think a lot of us kind of hope they would. So let's keep this moving. Let's get to what we want to see. So now this could be, if you're just wanting to see a real safe show, maybe it could play in to that, right? Like, this is likely and I want to see it. But this is not quite to the crazy level of prediction. So this is like, this is logical and I would like to see it in this show.
Sure. Mine, so there might be a few things. One is not necessarily plot related, but I want them really to embrace this idea of wild space. Like I was kind of mentioning earlier, like this is like past the unknown regions, right? Like it's uncharted. Nobody really knows what's out there. It's a cool place, right? Like this is like Lyra San's supposed to be out there, like the Lasat homeworld, somewhere out in wild space. Mortis was supposedly somewhere out in wild space.
The assumption.
General Grievous, I can't remember what his species are. They're from out in wild space. Like there's just all this cool random stuff out there. And I love the idea of going somewhere where you could have anything, right? Like any planet, like a new species, like something new and crazy, because this is the part of the Star Wars galaxy that nobody knows what's out there. And so I hope they do really dive into that and embrace it and give us some cool stuff, some crazy stuff, give us some cool lore stuff. I don't know. Let me ask you this. What do you think the nature of this ship is that they find? Like, obviously it's some sort of old Republic ship, but do you think it's like a Jedi ship or?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't put too much thought into the ship itself. I mean, I suppose as soon as the droid wakes up, we'll get some spiel on what it is.
The ship feels important. I don't know why.
Well, they're already selling a Lego set with the ship. Yeah. Like there's a lot to it, but also, I mean, the droid is on the ship, right? That's the deal.
Yeah.
So as soon as they wake him up, he will say whatever he was doing as the ship crashed or something like that. So, I haven't put too much thought into the actual meaning behind the ship, but that does make sense because the pirates
are they after them for the ship? That's what I would think. And if Jod thinks the ship is important for some reason, like otherwise, why has he not just been able to pursue his goal without this ship specifically?
You think this is going to be like the ship was, you know how you go to like Target or Walmart or whatever, and there's the Armis truck out there, or the Brinks truck out there, and like it's being guarded and
carrying all the movies.
Money. Yeah, do you think this ship is like an old Republic or
an armor truck or something?
Republic, armor truck, and it's just got like a ton of cash in the back of it, credits.
It could be. I mean, we don't know. Yeah, that's the thing.
That would be very pirate movie-esque.
Yeah, yeah. I think it would be cool if they, there was within the legend stuff, there was the Jedi kind of set a mission out to try to explore wild space and even try to get to other galaxies.
Yeah.
It was called Outbound Flight. Like you could tie in stuff like that. I just think there's a lot of cool stuff you could do with a very unknown part of the Star Wars galaxy. So I'm really hoping that they embrace that it's not just that it doesn't feel like they're just in some other part of the galaxy.
Yeah.
That we know and recognize. I hope it feels different and feels wild and crazy. So that's my hope.
I agree with that. Okay. So my hope kind of goes off one of your likely deals when we talked about it, but I want to see Hondo.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't think that's too far-fetched of a hope.
Love Hondo.
He's so fun. And what I really want to see out of Hondo, I mean, we know him in Rebels very well, but also within this timeline that we're in right now, we know we're like 15 or 20 years away from the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
And so the sequel trilogy is set on Batuu. I think it would be really cool if like we get some kind of reference to that. Like I know he won't be doing the Millennium Falcon or anything like that. But if he was like hiding out there for a while or something like that, like how neat would it be what if Hondo's there and he gets them to Batuu? Like that's how they get back and then jump wherever. And you see that on screen. And then Skeleton Crew's like a big deal, and then the theme parks like start weaving that
incorporate it. Yeah, get Black Spire Outpost on the screen.
How awesome would that be?
That would be pretty cool. Yeah, I think people would find. I think it would be fun
because they could just shut the theme park down in Hollywood or Orlando like one night and just sneak
pretty
people
quickly
in and do that and have your sets and everything.
Yeah,
it'd be pretty cool.
That would be a cool plan to kind of restructure that way. That'd be fun.
Yeah. I mean, it would just be like a little subtle plug into the amusement park already. And then it would
make sense.
Like the more you can like lore and canon stuff in and make things more immersive, like, oh, I can go to this place that they filmed at Skeleton Crew. Like, to me, nothing against what Galaxy's Edge is now. I go somewhat frequently. But I would say it would be even better, right? If you can tie it to something on screen, that's so much like just another level. And so
I get that.
I think it would be cool to have Hondo and somehow tie in to Batuu, Black Spire Outpost. And I don't think that's like the most ridiculous thing that could happen in this show. I know, the likelihood probably less than 1%, but it's not like 0.000001 or something crazy like that. So I think that would be a fun thing to see. That would be a little bit of Hondo. We know that would be fun. A little bit of Batuu with it. I think maybe show how he got to Batuu. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be a cool little entry into that.
But somehow not take away from the story either and seem like a shameless plug, because it could really seem like
come to Disney World. Plug. Come to Galaxy's
Edge. Hey, y'all can have this show, Dave and John and whoever else is doing it, but there has to be a theme park commercial during the show.
You got to plug the park now. Every show from now on, it's going to plug the park.
Something.
Yeah.
Maybe that would go south. I don't know.
Yeah.
Be funny.
Yeah.
So, do you have any other want to sees that are kind of
something I don't want to see?
Okay, don't want to
see. Which is, there's kind of a scene where it shows, I guess, the parents back on the planet. And it seems like they might be trying to figure something out, or like there might be.
Oh yeah, it seems like they're trying to take it into their own hands.
I don't want to spend too much time there. Like I get that it makes sense to go back and they're freaking out about the kids being gone, but I don't want that to become a big like side distraction where we're constantly back and forth between the planet and the kids. Like I get a little bit, but I don't. I really hope they don't do a lot of flip flopping back and forth between the two. So
I agree. What do you think about the Star Wars cul-de-sac, the subdivision that they show in the trailer, like where it's like sidewalks and kids playing?
I know it probably annoys some people. I think it's hilarious, right?
I don't care.
It's because it's totally just an homage to like where this show is coming from.
Yeah.
I mean, when you got that many worlds in a galaxy, like who's to say there's not cul-de-sacs, right? I mean,
it's true.
I think it's
Good
funny.
Point.
I don't have a problem with it. I think it grounds the show and like this is just the most boring life for these kids, right? And they just want to do something other than walk up and down their boring street and go to their boring schools. So
I like
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I don't care. Like some people were really mad about it. Like it looks too much like our world, and I get the like you want to be taken out of our world. You know, you don't want to feel like, oh, I'm just watching something in my neighborhood. But at the same time, I mean, there's still spaceships and a droid and a tentacle looking pirate guy. I mean, that is very much not happening in your neighborhood. So
and I mean the whole premise of the show is they're getting out of this place, right? I mean that's the whole point of it. So
one thing I don't want to see, and they did this in Mando season 3, is like the just random cameos, just because. I don't. That's a waste of time. I don't think they're gonna do that, but I don't want like a Jack Black, Lizzo, Christopher Lloyd showing up and really contributing nothing to anything.
I don't know. You don't want like their origin story. You don't want to figure out how they got on that planet and.
I want a Lizzo
became the leaders there
playing Galactic Crochet. That's what I want to see. It's the most interesting thing I've ever seen in Star Wars. Yeah. Right up there with
I hope
the secret twins that weren't secret.
Yeah. That Mando's side note, Mando season 3 was so weird. Like it just took it was so weird. It was just so bizarre the directions they took and the things they threw in there.
So I mean, it was clear want this show to turn into that.
Yeah, same. It feels like a show with a lot it's aiming for, though. It feels like it has a pretty solid direction, right? This isn't season 3 of Skeleton Crew.
Yeah.
You know, I think they know where they're going with this, so hopefully that won't be an issue.
How cool is it that we don't know what they're aiming for, though?
I like that.
Like,
it's
we don't.
Very different from going into the Acolyte, where we knew a ton, and you were really just trying to guess how the show would end. Yeah, we knew a lot about Ahsoka. Yeah, I like that the overall, like what's going on in the story is still pretty vague, right? We know what the story is about, what it's going to be, but beyond that, I like that. It's been pretty tight-lipped, which I like.
One last thing I want to see, and it kind of ties into my likely as well, so I'll be real quick on this, but I do want to see the state of the New Republic, like in this timeline, like what's going on.
More of the drama.
And so I think their little neighborhood deal kind of lets us in on that. Okay, like what's it like in your everyday planet? I think if you can build upon that in a few different locations, because they're on the run in a lot of places. Yeah. So I think that's an interesting thing to get before we hop into that Thrawn story where things are probably not going good. So maybe a little bit of the normal life that you don't typically see going on in this. Sounds fun.
You could get the perspective of like some of these nefarious groups. Like, are they even worried about the New Republic, or do they view them as just like this
a joke,
kind of toothless thing that they don't even worry about? You could, I think that would be cool to kind of incorporate some of that into this to really nail where they are right, how messed up they are right now. We've obviously seen bits and pieces of it, especially in Ahsoka.
Loser.
He
gets his though.
Yeah, I hope so.
So he does, and on Hosnian Prime, he gets his.
Oh, that's true.
The Force Awakens.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
he bites the dust.
Yeah.
What's his
name?
About
that.
Serrano or something. Yeah. Like that. So, let's get into the craziness. So You can go first.
All right.
We'll keep this pattern going.
So I went down a rabbit hole. So there's that shot in one of the images where it looks like he's looking at like the Sith runes, like that. It's that Ur-Katat language. It's like the language of the Sith or whatever. Yeah, it's like on a wall. He's like looking at it on a wall or something.
You can keep talking. I'll just be looking.
That's fine. So those.
Oh yeah, okay. I know what you're talking about.
So those runes, like it's like the Sith language, but it predates the Sith. Like they're super old, right? Like that's like in Rise of Skywalker. That's the language that C-3PO won't speak, right? Until they hack him and force him to do it. But so far, every time these runes kind of pop up, like they're tied to some pretty significant things. So like season 1 of Rebels, you know, where they go to the Jedi Temple on Lothal, and Ezra suddenly disappears and he's talking to Yoda. Which that place looks a lot like the World Between Worlds when he's there. You see those Sith runes kind of along some of the stuff there. Which again looks a lot like World Between Worlds. Those runes are like they're on the Ahsoka title page for like all the planet names. And so they've been tied to like some pretty significant things, right? Like Pathway to Peridia, World Between Worlds. And so the fact that these pop up here, I don't know, man. I feel like Jod's looking for something Force related. I don't think it's just a treasure. I don't think it's just wealth. I think he's looking for something that's pretty big. And maybe it does tie into World Between Worlds or Mortis or something like that. Because again, it seems like they're connecting, like just with the credits for Ahsoka, like they've tied this language to this Pathway to Peridia, and it's supposed to be an ancient language that predates the Sith. Like, I don't know, man. All of that to me just kind of points to this is a big, like it could be a really big thing that he's after. And so I'm thinking my crazy out there is that he's looking for something that connects with some of that big stuff. And it's not just a little treasure or a little artifact. So
what if this show like does a 2-pronged deal and it like the kids get back and it shows into the Thrawn deal? And what if he's also our prevailing theory is that Abeloth is calling to Baylan to like, hey, let me out. And so what if she's calling out to more than just Baylan? She's sending out like the
that was my thought. Like how crazy would it be if Jod's just he's pursuing this thing and he doesn't know why, but he's got to get there. Yeah. And it, and they connect it back to that. Like even in a little way. Like that would be cool. My extremely outlandish theory that I think I told you about is like, okay, if he really does want to get to the other galaxy, why? Like I was like, well, maybe he's like Shin's father or something. That was the really out there theory. He's like, I got my daughters and other dad. Right. So that one I don't think is true. But I do think this is something big. Like
it's fun.
Because those runes don't just pop up all the time. And so I'm really curious to see what he's tracking. Because I think it's something big and I think it's Force related. So
what if that ship is the way that like Sabine gets back? Because you know they either need they don't have a ship, I guess, or is Ahsoka's ship still okay? I think her ship's okay because they fly it back down. But they need, I guess, they don't have coordinates because they can't get a whale. I suppose they could just go find a whale and go back. So what if this ship ends up having the coordinates or something? And so then
I thought about that because like if you did tie it back to like something like an outbound flight where like the Jedi were trying to figure out a route to another galaxy or something, and they, because one of the interesting things is the kids like they jump into hyperspace and that's where the ship takes them is out into wild space, which generally ships you can't just jump them into hyperspace without coordinates. I mean, you got to turn things off, but
it's not wise.
There's safeties. But so it makes me think the ship's been there before out there, and that's what was in the system. So I don't know. There's lots of wild theories. But those runes, I think they're important. I think it's going to be something big.
I like your theory better than mine. You should have went last. So
I'm sure it's a great theory.
It's not. This is not even original. I did a little bit of like reading and stuff because we don't have a lot going on with Skeleton Crew as far as leaks or even. I mean, the interviews that they're doing are pretty vague too. They're like, there's Easter eggs and stuff like that. And you're like, totally. Oh, no kidding. There's an Easter egg in Star Wars.
Listen,
who'd have thought?
They have been told to say nothing. Like you can tell. They have been told say nothing about the story. Because they don't say anything that gives you anything. So
I mean, after the Acolyte crew went on their whatever you want to call their press tour, I'll refrain from a lot of opinions on it, but they said a lot of things about the show, about life in general, things they didn't need to say. So not super smart how they went about that, and so they are.
Oh man.
Kind of cleaning that up here, which is a good thing. But so I had to do a lot of digging. Now, I saw an article and it was like Jod being Sabaoth from like Heir to the Empire. Not that that's him like per se, but like a type of Sabbath,
Yeah.
right? Like he's this clone that's force sensitive, and he's actually just kind of being used, like a type of thing. And so what if now I don't know that I want it to be like a Palpatine beam back type deal,
right.
how, because you could tie in stuff like, is he a Palpatine clone, because that's who's doing the cloning. I suppose Moff Gideon's doing cloning as well, so maybe everybody's cloning. It's like maybe Thrawn had something going on. I don't know, but I think it would be just so crazy wild because Thrawn needs a point guy for the Force. You know what I mean? As far as this next battle of things goes, he's got all of the, supposedly he's going to Dathomir to get like the Night Brothers and stuff.
Yeah,
but he needs someone with a lightsaber. And so what if he turns out to be that guy, right? So his whole deal is getting back to Thrawn, and he's a Sith or a force sensitive clone that's going to be used for Thrawn's purposes. Think that would be pretty cool. And then you have this bad guy to battle Ezra or to battle Sabine or Ahsoka, or however they shake all that out.
That's interesting.
I think if you're going to have an Ezra, you need a bad guy on that side that he can have a lightsaber duel
for
with.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with that. That's interesting because, so Sabath he's also tied in with Outbound Flight. So originally as a Jedi Master, he was on that group that was trying to set out and explore the wild space and into other galaxies.
His original self.
Thrawn. Yeah, his original self runs into Thrawn out there. And the whole the whole point of that story with Outbound Flight is that ultimately Thrawn encountered and knew about the Yuuzhan Vong, which means the Emperor did, and they were planning the whole time for this invasion. Like they were trying to be ready for this threat. Now they've kind of done that a little bit, like with the Grisk, right? Like in the Thrawn books, like there's this force out there in wild space that is simmering. So maybe this character is bringing something like that back, like some sort of news of like this threat, because that was Thrawn's thing. Ultimately was that he was always preparing for a bigger threat. Like he and the Emperor were ultimately, they weren't just trying to rule the galaxy; they were trying to prepare for this thing that was coming, which is pretty interesting. Zahn put all that together. So maybe it does start to lean into that a little bit. Like there's this threat out in wild space that he's going to bring back to Thrawn, and Thrawn's trying to get ready for that, but he's also trying to maintain control over the Imperial remnant and all that stuff. I think you could tie it in. That'd be cool.
Well, you got to think that he was getting out of pretty dang quick.
Too. Oh yeah,
like he
didn't want to hang around.
So maybe all of that kind of
ready to go.
Because again, you've talked about this before. You don't have to just copy the lore that we have, but like pull the things that make sense. And so if you just take like these tones and themes from all of it, and like, oh, this is a character who plays this role. Let's take that idea, create this character, and insert him into that role. I think that's what maybe we could see here, especially with. I mean, Thrawn is the big bad guy. Everything they've got to do in this time frame is pointing us back to this, I think. So,
and I think
it makes sense.
I've heard Zahn, because obviously they've consulted him with a lot on the character. I've heard him say that his story's really going to ramp up, and like that character, the character that we know, is really going to start ramping up as we get back to his story. It would be gutsy though to do that, because there's people are kind of on an heir to the Empire kick right now. A lot of people who haven't, it's just great. Like, I love that people are going back and kind of reading a lot of these Legends books and rediscovering them, because they're awesome. I mean, they're great stories. But then do you run the risk of people being like, well, this isn't as good as the books were? So
they're going to say that no matter what. I mean,
I know. But I'm just saying right now, when people are really into it, it would be gutsy to try to like recreate it. I mean, it might work amazing. I don't know. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. It'll be interesting. So
that's a good point, because I mean, the Acolyte had a lot of flaws, but man, Leslie Headland Ewers, to a degree, she knew a lot about a lot of stuff. So she brings in like Cortosis and Baldimnik and Plagueis and things like that. And people are still mad about it. I don't think that's what people are mad about, but people are still mad about it. So you're right. Like, what if they, even if they do it in good taste, people are going to be like mad about it.
And this is just this is just my opinion, right? But like, I like when they pull things in from Legends. Like, listen, man, I was into it, right? I mean, I had at one point I probably had 60, 70 Star Wars books on my shelf just from the expanded universe. I mean, it was massive. And so, are you bummed when that stuff like gets thrown out? Well, yeah, a little bit. But then, like when they start pulling it in, one, you can always go back and enjoy those stories. But two, it still makes them a little bit relevant and a little bit alive. Like I love seeing things that I love from those books get brought in. And so, I mean, I guess everybody doesn't feel that way, but I like it if it does it in a way that honors the source material and doesn't.
Well, yeah, it even elevates it a little.
So,
like
yeah.
It brings it into like, hey, this thing wasn't canon, but look, we're yanking it back in here. It is canon now. So I think that's cool. So
I appreciate
it. Well, I was gonna say that's my crazy prediction. Is this show? And my thing is through Jod, probably. Like I think he's going to be a key to this. But my whole deal with this show is it is going to be the driving force towards the Heir to the Empire story that they're telling. They've said Heir to the Empire out loud. Like Ahsoka Tano has said those words.
Yeah, they're moving towards that idea.
That's not accidental. And so there's no way that this show doesn't take themes from that, throw it in, and bring us to the next thing.
Well, and it's there, right? I mean, we're already at where that story sets up, which is Thrawn taking over the remnant of the Empire. I mean, that's the whole setup of Heir to the Empire is that he takes over.
He's the guy. So,
I mean, we're there. Like we're already into that story. But do you think Jod makes it out of this show?
Yeah.
Do you think he does? I'm torn. Like I think he's a really cool character, and I'd like to see him continue. But I also, man, Jude Law's got to be expensive. So
so here's my thought on this. I don't think now this is strictly like business stuff, right?
Sure.
So I don't think you just go get Jude Law just to write him off. Now they did.
That's true.
The Matrix woman wrote her off in like 3 seconds.
That was pretty quick.
But they were spending a lot of money. But also, I feel like you bring a guy like that in to when you get to the box office with these movies that they're going to do.
Yeah.
What if he's like a bad guy in it or whatever? And it's like you can throw Pedro Pascal, Jude Law, like all these big names on the movie poster. That's a pretty smooth move by Lucasfilm Disney to have those blockbuster names on a blockbuster title.
That's true.
And, so I think he makes it through just for the sake of he's a really good actor. He's a household name. But again, you could be right.
I'd say thinking about the shows, he's got to be the biggest household name. The other people are pretty well known at this point, but
right. I'm trying Pedro to think Pascal of somebody would be the closest, but at the time, no.
He's much bigger now.
He's bigger now. He is the guy now. Like it's the Rock and then Pedro Pascal.
Yeah. Jude Law really might be the biggest, like just in terms, like you said, household name they've brought into the shows. So
besides
maybe you're right. Maybe they do that with a long-term plan rather than I don't know. That's good. Yeah. We'll see.
I think we'll
find out soon.
So I think as far as these predictions go, now I will clip this prediction thing up a few different ways and post it before Skeleton Crew comes out. But I just think this whole conversation, like the best thing again is that we don't know anything. Like we know so little. We've got clues here and there, and I think that's the way we should be going into these shows. So if all of our stuff ends up wrong, that's great. That's probably really smart for us to be wrong on all of it. But it's just it's a good time because it's going to be every week. We have no clue what's coming, and that's a good time. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am too. Because like I said, it's going to be fun, but it's going to be. I think every episode you're going to be getting a little further down that road of who this character is, like what's going on, like what's the mystery behind this ship, like
world building.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot to look forward to, in addition to the just fact, it just looks fun. So I'm really excited about the show. I think it's going to be, by the time it's all said and done, I do think it's going to be really good. So
yeah, I've got really high hopes for this show.
I do too.
And I think I just had medium hopes going into it, and now they're super high. So, which is what happens with me in Star Wars. But
as it gets closer.
Yeah. So looking ahead, it's really exciting because next week we're doing
2 episodes.
We'll break down 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And then the following 6 weeks, we'll do the same thing. So that's kind of our outlook until January. And to be honest with you, it's fun to not have to maybe plan anything.
You know what you're doing every week.
It's probably better for the audience too. So thank you guys for watching. Drop in the comments your craziest theories. If you want to do it in the same format, the likely, the want to see, the wild ones, go for it. We're excited to read those and interact with those as well. I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving. You're watching this hopefully before Thanksgiving. So have a great holiday weekend, and we will catch y'all on the other side of the Skeleton.